You're a samurai. It's 1615. You've trained your entire life for war. Your father trained for war. His father died in one. You can draw a katana and cut a man down in under a second. You've been waiting for the next battle your whole life. It's not coming. Not today. Not next year. Not for the next 250 years. You should feel relief. Instead, you feel something you don't have a word for. A dread that sits in your chest and doesn't leave. Because the thing that destroyed the samurai wasn't an enemy army. It wasn't a rival clan or a foreign invasion. It was silence, total, permanent, unbearable peace. In 1603, a warlord named Tokugawa Ieyasu did what no one in Japan had managed for over a century. He ended every war on the island, after generations of civil bloodshed, clans torching villages, samurai dying in rice paddies. Ieyasu crushed the last resistance at the siege of Osaka and unified Japan under a single military government, the Tokugawa shogunate. Japan entered what historians call the Edo period, 250 years of almost unbroken peace. For farmers and merchants, this was salvation. For the samurai, it was the beginning of the end. And what happened next is one of the strangest chapters in human psychology. Let's start with the scale. At the dawn of the Edo period, Japan had roughly 2 million samurai. That's 6 to 7% of the entire population. 2 million people whose identity, income, rank, and reason to exist revolved around a single thing: war. Now imagine telling all of them, overnight, that the thing they were built for is finished. Forever. Within one generation, tens of thousands became ronin, masterless samurai, with no lord, no income, and no war to fight. They drifted across Japan searching for purpose in a country that didn't need them anymore. Some turned to banditry, some drank themselves into oblivion. In 1651, a ronin named Yui Shosetsu organized a coup against the shogunate, not for ideology, not for power, because he and thousands like him had nothing left to live for. The plot was discovered. Shosetsu killed himself, but the desperation behind it told the real story. Peace hadn't liberated these men. It had hollowed them out. But here's the thing. The ronin weren't even the worst off. The samurai who kept their positions suffered in a way that's harder to see. The shogunate didn't need swordsmen. It needed bureaucrats. So the warrior class was reassigned. Samurai filed tax documents. They copied land surveys. They managed rice quotas and studied Confucian philosophy. Warriors became clerks, and nobody talked about how strange that was. A scholar named Yamaga Soko did. In the mid-1600s, he asked a question no one wanted to hear. If there's no war, what is a samurai for? He tried to answer it by reimagining the samurai as moral exemplars, men of discipline and character, not violence. A noble attempt, but you can't patch an identity crisis with philosophy. The proof is in the strangest document of the era, the Hagakure, written in 1716 by Yamamoto Tsunetomo, a retired samurai. It's considered the ultimate guide to bushido, the warrior's code. Every page is obsessed with death, honor, and the willingness to die at a moment's notice. And here's the part that changes everything. Tsunetomo never fought in a single battle. He wrote an entire book about dying for your master, in an era when there was absolutely nothing to die for. That's not warrior philosophy. That's a man grieving a purpose he never got to fulfill. So, let's reconstruct today. You're a samurai in Edo, around 1700. You wake up in a modest wooden home. Your stipend barely covers rice. You dress in formal robes, not armor. You walk to a government office and copy documents until afternoon. You practice sword forms alone in your courtyard, but you've never drawn a blade against a living person. Neither did your father. Your grandfather might have. You attend a tea ceremony. You write poetry. You go to sleep. By title, you're a warrior. By daily life, you're an accountant with a sword you're not allowed to use. Here's the part that gets me. You already know this feeling. Maybe you've finished something you poured your whole self into, and the morning after, you felt completely empty. Maybe you've watched someone retire after decades and quietly fall apart. Maybe you've had a Sunday with nothing to do and felt something worse than stress, a restlessness with no name and no target. Psychologists call it purpose anxiety. The unease that comes not from having too much on your plate, but from having nothing on it that matters. The samurai didn't have a name for it. They just lived inside it for 250 years. But here's where the samurai story stops being a tragedy and starts being a lesson. The human brain doesn't want comfort. It wants a reason to get up, a problem to solve, a thing worth struggling for. Take that away, and it doesn't rest. It spirals. The samurai proved that. But you're not a samurai. You're not locked into a title someone else defined for you 3 centuries ago. You get to choose your fight. The samurai fell because they couldn't adapt when the battlefield disappeared. They stayed warriors in a world that had moved on. But you can see the pattern now. You can recognize that hollow Sunday feeling for what it actually is. Not laziness, not failure. A signal. Your brain telling you it needs something to matter. The samurai waited 250 years for a war that never came. You don't have to wait. You just have to find something worth fighting for.